He was the kind of boy people noticed only to laugh at, not because he was loud or rude, but because he was quiet in a world that rewarded noise. In his classroom, children raised their hands quickly, spoke fast, and tried hard to be seen. He did none of that. He sat near the window, shoulders slightly bent, eyes often drifting outside as if he was listening to something no one else could hear. This made him an easy target. His clothes were always clean but old. The colors had faded with time and the fabric had softened from being washed too many times. Some boys made jokes about it. They whispered when he walked past, then laughed a little louder so he could hear. A few even asked him in fake kindness why he never bought new clothes. He never answered. He just looked down, pretending he did not hear, though every word stayed with him. At school, teachers misunderstood him. When they asked questions and he did not respond quickly, they assumed he was weak in studies. When group activities happened, he was usually left out. Not because he was unkind, but because he did not know how to push himself into conversations. Others took his silence as emptiness. No one realized that his mind was full of sounds, rhythms, and feelings he could not explain. During breaks, while other children ran, shouted, and played games, he stayed near the stairs or under a tree. He watched people carefully. He noticed how footsteps had different sounds, how voices rose and fell like waves, how even laughter had a rhythm. These small things made him feel calm. They made him feel safe in a place that often felt cruel. At home, life was simple and sometimes hard. His parents worked long hours just to manage basic needs. They loved him deeply, but they did not understand him completely. When relatives visited, they often compared him to other children. "Why is he so quiet?" they asked. "Why doesn't he speak more?" His parents smiled politely, but those questions stayed in the air like a heavy weight. The boy heard them all. Money was always tight. There were no toys, no music classes, no special training. Yet in their small house there was something broken that changed his world, a very old keyboard someone had thrown away. A few keys did not work and the sound was rough, but to him it was magic. When he touched the keys, something inside him felt alive. He did not know the names of the notes, but he felt them. Each sound felt like a sentence he had been wanting to say for years. Still, outside that small room, the world remained unkind. One day at school, during a small event, the teacher asked if anyone wanted to perform. Some students sang, some danced. Someone jokingly pointed at him and said, "Let him try, he never talks anyway." The class laughed. The teacher smiled awkwardly and moved on, his face burned with shame. That night he cried quietly so no one would hear. What hurt him most was not the laughter, but the feeling of being invisible. People saw him, but they did not truly look at him. They decided who he was without asking. They believed silence meant weakness, and quiet meant nothing important was happening inside. Yet every time he felt small, music waited for him. Late at night, when the house was quiet, he pressed the keys gently, careful not to wake anyone. He made mistakes, but he did not stop. In those moments, the laughter of others disappeared. The mockery lost its power. There, in that soft sound, he felt strong. He did not dream of fame or applause, he only wanted to be understood. He did not know it yet, but the same people who laughed at him would one day fall silent. And it would not be because of words. It would be because of a melody so honest, so deep, that no one would know how to react except to listen. From a very young age, he felt more comfortable with silence than with speech. Words often felt heavy in his mouth, like they did not belong to him. When he tried to speak, people interrupted him or finished his sentences for him. Slowly, he learned that staying quiet was easier. Silence became his shield. But inside that silence, something powerful was growing. He began to notice sounds the way other children notice toys or games. The early morning call of birds, the slow hum of ceiling fans, the distant noise of traffic at night, each sound stayed with him. He did not just hear them, he felt them. They made him curious. He wondered why some sounds made him calm while others made his heart beat faster. At home, when everyone else slept, he would sit near the old broken keyboard. Some keys worked, some did not, but that did not stop him. He pressed one key again and again, listening carefully. Then he pressed another. Slowly, without knowing it, he began creating patterns. His fingers moved by feeling, not by rules. Music became the only place where he felt confident. He never told anyone about this world of sound. It felt too personal, too fragile. What if they laughed at this too? What if they said it was useless, just noise? So he kept it hidden like a secret friend who never judged him. While others used words to express anger, happiness, or pain, he used melodies. In school, his silence continued to confuse people. Teachers often asked him if something was wrong. He nodded politely, even when nothing was wrong at all. Classmates thought he was strange. Some said he was slow. Some said he was scared. None of them guessed that his mind was always busy, full of music playing softly in the background. Whenever life felt too heavy, he escaped into sound. Even walking down the street, he created rhythms in his head from footsteps and passing vehicles. Rain became music. Wind became music. Everything around him seemed to speak in a language he understood deeply. Music did what words never could, it listened back. There were moments when frustration took over, when someone mocked him and he wanted to respond but couldn't, when he wanted to explain himself but felt trapped. During those moments he ran home, sat by the keyboard and played harder, louder, faster. Each note carried a feeling: anger, sadness, hope. By the time he stopped, his heart felt lighter. His parents noticed that music calmed him, even if they did not fully understand why. They thought it was just a hobby, something he would outgrow. They did not know that music was not something he did, it was who he was becoming. It shaped how he saw the world and how he survived it. He never learned music the proper way. No teacher guided him, no books explained it, everything came from within. This made his melodies different, raw, imperfect, but real. Each sound carried his story, his loneliness, his strength. Over time, silence stopped feeling empty. It became full of meaning. When he said nothing, music spoke for him inside his head. It reminded him that he was not useless, that he was not weak, that one day when the time was right he would not need words at all, because some stories are not meant to be spoken, they are meant to be heard. Life did not change quickly for him, but small moments began to shape him in quiet ways. One afternoon after school, while walking home alone, he passed by an old community hall. The building looked tired, with cracked walls and a rusty gate. Normally, he would have walked past without looking, but that day he heard something that stopped him. A piano was playing inside. The sound was not perfect, but it was real. It felt alive. His feet slowed down, and before he realized it, he was standing near the open door. Inside, an old man was practicing alone. His hair was gray, and his hands moved slowly across the keys. The boy stood at the door, afraid to step in. He listened quietly, his heart beating fast. The music filled the empty hall and reached something deep inside him. It felt like the piano was speaking a language he had always known but never heard this clearly before. The old man noticed him after a while and stopped playing. For a moment, the boy thought he would be scolded. Instead, the man smiled gently and asked if he liked music. The boy nodded, unsure what to say. His hands trembled a little. The man did not push him to speak, he simply asked him to come closer. That day became the first time someone truly saw him. The old man did not laugh at his silence. He did not ask difficult questions, he just listened. When the man invited him to touch the keys, the boy hesitated. His fingers hovered over the piano like they were scared, then he pressed one key. The sound echoed softly, he pressed another. Slowly, something familiar returned, his fear faded. He played the way he always did, by feeling. The notes were simple, uneven, but honest. The old man watched carefully, not interrupting. When the boy stopped, expecting criticism, the man surprised him. He said the music felt real. He said it sounded like emotion, not practice. No one had ever spoken to him like that before. From that day on, the boy started visiting the hall whenever he could. The old man never asked for money, he never rushed him. He only guided him gently, showing him small things, letting him explore. He taught him that mistakes were part of music, just like pauses were part of sound. For the first time, the boy felt safe learning. At school, things were still hard, the laughter did not stop, the jokes continued, but something inside him had changed. He now carried a quiet confidence. When people mocked him, it still hurt, but it did not break him the way it used to. He had a place where he belonged, even if no one else knew about it. Sometimes he wished he could explain himself. He wished he could stand up and tell them that he was not empty, not weak, not useless, but words still failed him. So instead, he waited, he practiced. He learned to let his fingers say what his mouth could not. At home, his parents noticed the change. He seemed calmer, more focused. He smiled more, even if he still did not talk much. They did not know about the old man or the hall, but they felt something good was happening. They trusted him enough not to ask too many questions. One evening, the old man told him something important. He said music does not need permission. It does not ask where you come from or how much you have. It only asks for honesty. Those words stayed with the boy. He realized that music did not care about his past, his clothes, or his silence. It only cared about truth. As days passed, his melodies grew stronger. They carried more feeling, more story. He was still the same quiet boy to the world, but inside he was growing. He was becoming someone new, someone who understood that silence was not a weakness. It was the space where his music was born. And though he did not know it yet, the same world that ignored him was slowly moving closer to hearing him. As time passed, the small community hall became more than just a place to practice. It became a second home. The boy arrived there every day after school, sometimes tired, sometimes hurt by the words people had thrown at him, but always hopeful. The old man welcomed him with the same calm smile, never asking why he was late or why he looked sad. He understood without words, and that made the boy feel respected. The old man began teaching him slowly. Not like a strict teacher, but like someone sharing life lessons through music. He showed him how each note carried emotion, how silence between notes mattered just as much as sound. He explained that music was not about speed or showing off but about honesty. The boy listened carefully. These lessons stayed with him not just in music but in how he saw himself. At school, however, things became harder. One day, during a class activity, the teacher asked students to talk about their dreams. When it was his turn, the room went quiet. Some students smiled, waiting for him to struggle. Someone whispered, "He won't say anything." The teacher moved on quickly, trying to avoid awkwardness. His face burned again, but this time something different happened. Instead of feeling completely broken, he felt a quiet strength. He knew his dream, even if he could not say it. The mocking continued, but it started to sound distant, like noise fading in the background. He still felt pain, but he also felt purpose. Every insult pushed him deeper into music. Every laugh became fuel. At night, his fingers moved faster, stronger, carrying more emotion than before. His melodies were no longer soft and unsure. They were bold. They carried pain, hope, and courage together. The old man noticed the change. He could hear it in the boys playing. One evening, after a long session, the man told him that his music was becoming powerful. He said that one day, people would listen not because they felt sorry for him, but because they would have no choice. The boy did not fully understand, but the words stayed in his heart. Soon, the old man shared something unexpected. He told the boy about a small local music gathering that happened once a year. It was nothing grand, just a stage, a piano, and a small audience. He suggested that the boy perform. The boy froze, his hands shook. The thought of people watching him, judging him, laughing at him terrified him. Music felt safe only when he was alone. The old man did not force him. He simply said that fear never disappears, but courage grows when you face it. He reminded the boy that his music was honest, and honesty never needed to hide. The boy went home that night restless. His mind was full of questions and fear, but beneath all that fear was a small spark of excitement. Days passed and the idea stayed with him. At school, the laughter continued, but now he imagined a moment when he would not need to explain himself. A moment when music would speak before anyone could judge him. Slowly, he made a decision. He went back to the hall and quietly nodded when the old man asked him again. It was his first brave choice. Preparation began. The boy practiced harder than ever. His fingers hurt, but he did not stop. He played until his emotions flowed freely through the keys. He did not copy anyone. He created something from his own life, his loneliness, his silence, his strength. The old man guided him but never changed his style. He wanted the boy to remain real. At home, his parents sensed something important was coming. They did not understand music deeply, but they saw determination in their son's eyes. For the first time, they felt proud, even without knowing why. They supported him quietly, the same way he had learned to support himself. As the day of the performance approached, fear and hope walked side by side inside him. He was still the boy people laughed at. He was still quiet, still unnoticed. But now he carried something powerful within him, something no one could take away. And soon, very soon, the world would hear what silence had been holding all along. The day of the performance arrived faster than he expected. The small local music gathering was held in a modest hall, nothing like the grand stages he had only seen on television. Still, to him, it felt enormous. Rows of chairs faced a simple stage, and at the center stood a black piano under bright lights. The moment he saw it, his heart began to race. His hands felt cold and his legs felt weak. Fear wrapped around him tightly. People slowly filled the hall. Families, local musicians, teachers, and students took their seats. Among them were a few familiar faces from his school. Some of the same boys who laughed at him sat in the audience, whispering and smiling. He heard his name mentioned, followed by quiet laughter. Old feelings of shame tried to return, but he took a deep breath and remembered why he was there. Backstage, the old man stood beside him. He placed a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder and told him to trust his music. He said the piano would listen to him the way it always had. Those words calmed him more than any advice ever could. When his name was called, the boy walked toward the stage slowly. Each step felt heavy, but he did not stop. The lights felt blinding. The audience became a blur of faces. For a moment, he wanted to run away. But then he saw the piano. It waited silently, just like him. He sat down, closed his eyes, and placed his fingers on the keys. The hall became quiet. The first note was soft, almost unsure. A few people shifted in their seats. Some expected a mistake. Then came the second note and the third. Slowly, the melody began to grow. His hands moved with confidence, guided by years of emotion and practice. The music carried sadness, loneliness, and hope all at once. It told a story without using a single word. As the melody continued, something changed in the room. Whispers stopped, smiles faded, people leaned forward. Even those who came with doubt felt something pull at their hearts. The boys who once laughed at him sat still, unsure of what they were feeling. The music did not ask for approval. It demanded attention. Each note felt honest. It sounded like pain turning into strength, like silence finding its voice. The boy forgot about the audience. He forgot about fear. In that moment there was only him and the piano. His fingers moved freely, expressing everything he had never been able to say. When the final note faded, the hall remained silent. No one clapped immediately. For a second the boy thought he had failed. Then slowly one person stood up. Then another. Soon the entire hall was filled with applause. Not loud shouting, not cheering, just deep, respectful clapping, the kind that comes from understanding. Tears filled his eyes as he stood up and bowed gently. He did not smile widely. He did not speak. He did not need to. The music had already done what words never could. For the first time in his life, people saw him clearly. Backstage, the old man's eyes were wet with pride. He hugged the boy without saying much. The boy felt something new: acceptance. Not because he had changed who he was, but because he had finally shown his truth. As he left the hall that evening, people looked at him differently. Some nodded with respect. Some smiled softly. Even those who once mocked him stayed quiet. No words were spoken, but everything had changed. That night, as he returned home, the city felt different. The noise felt softer. The world felt kinder. He was still quiet, still simple. But now he knew something important. Silence had never been his weakness. It had been his strength, waiting for the right moment to be heard. After the performance, life did not suddenly become perfect, but it was no longer the same. The next morning at school, the boy walked into his classroom with the same quiet steps, but something felt different in the air. Conversations stopped for a second when he entered. A few students looked at him with surprise. Some looked confused. Some looked uncomfortable. The laughter that once followed him did not come as easily anymore. During class, a teacher asked a question. As usual, he did not raise his hand, but this time no one laughed, no one whispered. The silence felt heavy yet respectful. For the first time, his quietness did not feel like a weakness in the eyes of others. It felt like something people were careful with. At lunch, something unexpected happened. One of the boys who used to mock him came and sat nearby. He did not apologize. He did not say much. He only said, "You play really well." Then he left. The words were simple, but they stayed with the boy all day. It was not revenge he felt. It was peace. Back at the community hall, the old man smiled more than usual. He told the boy that one performance does not change a life, but it opens doors. Soon, people from the audience began visiting the hall. Some asked questions, some wanted to meet the boy, some asked the old man where he had learned to play like that. The boy stayed quiet, standing slightly behind his mentor, unsure how to react. A few days later, the old man shared news that made the boy's heart race again. Someone from the gathering had connections to a larger music academy in the city. They wanted the boy to audition. The word audition sounded big and scary. Bigger than anything he had faced before. The city felt far away. The people felt important. Doubt returned quickly. That night he could not sleep. Old fears came back. What if they laughed again? What if this time he failed in front of people who truly mattered? What if he was not good enough after all? His fingers moved silently in the air, playing imaginary keys, trying to calm his thoughts. His parents noticed his restlessness. Slowly, carefully, they spoke to him. They told him they were proud of him, no matter what happened next. They said he did not need to prove anything to anyone. Those words gave him strength. For the first time, he felt fully supported, not questioned. The day of the audition arrived. The academy building was large and intimidating. Clean floors, white walls, and serious-looking people moved around confidently. The boy felt small again. His hands trembled as he waited. Other performers warmed up, showing fast fingers and loud confidence. He kept his head down, breathing slowly. When his turn came, he walked into a quiet room with a grand piano and a few judges sitting behind a table. They asked his name and what he would play. He did not explain much. He simply sat down. This time the fear was stronger than before, but so was his belief. He remembered the old man's words. He remembered the hall. He remembered the first time he touched a piano and felt understood. He closed his eyes and played. The melody was different this time, more mature, more controlled. It carried growth, struggle, and hope. The judges listened without interruption. When he finished, they did not speak immediately. One of them finally said that his music felt honest. Another said it felt real, not trained, but deeply meaningful. Weeks passed slowly after that. Waiting was harder than performing. Then one afternoon, a letter arrived. His hands shook as his mother opened it. He had been accepted, not with praise-filled words, not with promises of fame, but with an opportunity to learn. The old man listened quietly when the boy told him the news. Then he smiled and said that this was where their paths would slowly separate. The boy's heart sank. The hall had been his safe place. The man had been his guide. Leaving felt painful. On their last day together, the old man told him something important. He said that music gave him a voice, but life would test it. He said there would be moments when people would doubt him again. Moments when words would still fail him, and that was okay. As the boy walked away from the hall one final time, he did not look back. Not because he forgot, but because he carried everything with him. The silence, the pain, the melody. He was no longer just the boy they laughed at. He was becoming someone the world would listen to. The academy changed his world in ways he never imagined. From the first day, he realized he had entered a place where everyone loved music as deeply as he did. The halls were filled with sound, pianos, violins, voices practicing scales. Instead of mocking laughter, there was focus and discipline. Still, he felt out of place. Most students spoke confidently, shared stories, and talked about years of formal training. He stayed quiet, listening more than speaking, just as he always had. Classes were difficult at first. Music theory felt like a new language. Notes had names now. Rules existed where feelings once guided him. Sometimes he felt lost. Sometimes he wondered if he truly belonged there. A few students looked at him with curiosity. Some assumed he was less skilled because he did not talk much. Those old judgments tried to return, but they did not hurt the same way anymore. Practice rooms became his comfort. Alone with the piano, he felt free again. Slowly, he learned how to mix discipline with emotion. Technique gave shape to his feelings. Feeling gave life to technique. His music began to change, becoming stronger and clearer but never empty. Teachers noticed. They did not praise him loudly, but they watched him closely. One instructor, known for being strict, asked him one day why he played the way he did. The boy struggled to answer. He paused, searching for words that still felt foreign. Finally, he said simply that music was how he spoke. The teacher nodded and said nothing more. From that day on, he treated the boy differently, not softer, but with respect. Outside classes, loneliness returned sometimes. He missed the old community hall. He missed the old man who never judged him. City life moved fast, and people rarely waited for quiet voices. Some nights, doubt crept in again. He wondered if he would ever truly fit in anywhere. Then came an opportunity that changed everything. The academy announced a showcase performance. Only a few students would be chosen to perform in front of important guests, musicians, and sponsors. Competition filled the air. Students practiced harder, spoke louder, tried to stand out. He did not try to compete, he only practiced. Hours passed with him at the piano, shaping a melody that felt like his entire journey. The boy who was mocked, the silence. The pain, the hope, everything flowed into the music. When the list was posted, his name was there. On the night of the showcase, the stage was larger, brighter, and more intimidating than any he had faced before. The audience was bigger. The expectations were heavier. But when he sat at the piano, something familiar returned. Calm, he played with a maturity that surprised even his teachers. The music was not fast or flashy, it was deep, honest. It demanded attention without asking for it. By the time the last note faded, the hall was silent again, the same powerful silence he had felt before. Applause followed, strong and long. This time, it was not just understanding he felt. It was recognition. He realized then that he did not need to become loud to be heard. He did not need to change who he was. His silence was still part of him, but now it carried meaning others could feel. The boy who once hid behind quietness was no longer hiding. He was standing in his truth, and the world was listening. Time moved forward quietly, just like he always had. The boy who once sat alone near classroom windows had grown into a young man whose presence felt calm and deep. His life was no longer shaped by mockery or doubt, but by understanding. Music had not erased his past. It had carried it with him, shaping every step he took. Even now, after years of practice, performances, and learning, he remained simple. Fame came slowly, and when it did, he never let it change him. He performed in many cities, on stages far bigger than the small hall where it all began. Bright lights, large audiences, and respectful applause became part of his life. Yet before every performance, he sat quietly for a moment, remembering the silence of his childhood. He remembered the laughter that once hurt him and the loneliness that once followed him everywhere. Those memories kept his music honest. They reminded him why he played in the first place. People often asked him why his music felt so emotional. Interviewers tried to make him explain his success in words, but he struggled the same way he always had. He smiled politely and answered simply. He said music spoke when he could not. Some understood, some did not. He learned that not everyone needed an explanation. Those who truly listened already knew. One evening, after a large concert, he noticed a young boy waiting near the stage door. The boy stood quietly, holding a small, worn-out bag. His clothes were clean but old, and his eyes were full of fear and hope mixed together. The young man saw himself in that boy immediately. He walked toward him slowly, not wanting to scare him. The boy spoke softly. He said people laughed at him too. He said he did not talk much. He said music made him feel safe. The young man listened without interrupting. He did not rush to give advice or speak big words. He simply nodded and told the boy something honest. He said the world is loud and sometimes it does not wait for quiet people. But he also said that quiet people feel deeply and that depth is powerful. He invited the boy to sit at the piano for a moment. The boy hesitated just like he once had. Then he pressed a key. The sound echoed gently in the empty hall. The young man smiled. He told the boy to keep listening even when life felt unfair. He said one day the same people who laughed would stop not because they changed, but because the music would speak louder than words ever could. Later that night, after everyone had left, the young man felt a strong pull toward the past. He traveled back to the old community hall where everything had begun. The building looked older, the paint more faded, but the feeling was the same. The piano was still there. Some keys were worn, some sounded rough, but it was perfect in its own way. He sat down alone and placed his hands on the keys, no audience, no lights, no expectations. Just him and the sound that had saved him years ago. He played slowly, gently, letting memories guide his fingers. Each note carried a piece of his journey: pain, silence, courage, growth. He thought about the old man who had first believed in him. He wished he could thank him again. He wished he could say everything he never said back then, but instead he played. The melody became his thank you, his goodbye, his promise to never forget where he came from. When the music ended, silence filled the hall. It was not an empty silence. It was full of meaning, full of peace. He sat there for a long time, breathing deeply, feeling complete. He realized then that his story was never about success. It was about survival, about turning hurt into beauty, about showing that silence does not mean weakness, it means depth, it means listening, it means feeling. They once mocked him to his face. They believed silence meant nothing, but one melody changed everything. And in that final, quiet moment, as the echoes faded into the walls of the old hall, no words were needed at all.